Well, here I am in the 2025 Ram 1500, and the trim I am driving is the Rebel. And the reason I chose this one is, quite frankly, it is my favorite version of this half-ton truck. Now, this is a refresh, and it doesn't look that different than last year's version, but what you can't see matters most, so let's get into that. For those of you who are unaware, the V8 in this truck is officially dead. Call it a victim of its own success because, well, Stellantis has to get its fleet average emissions down, and this truck is incredibly popular, and that means in order to do that, it has to offset the emissions of this truck, and that meant ditching the 5.7 liter Hemi V8 in place of this new Hurricane family of straight six engines that I must say I was very excited about. I drove the Jeep Grand Wagoneer not too long ago. If you haven't seen that review, go ahead, cue it up after you are done here. That is a fantastic, if inefficient, SUV. But I was really excited when I heard that the V8 was being replaced by this 3-liter straight six that's twin turbocharged, and so far so good, super smooth. Now, that's one of those traits, well, you just expect it in a straight six. That's the whole point of it, is because it's perfectly balanced, and that's very much the case here. But just in general, the torque delivery in this is absolutely fantastic, and it plays really nice with the overall package here. There's also two different versions of this engine, just like in that Grand Wagoneer. There's the standard output version or the high output. Now this one I'm driving, it's the standard output, but it is anything but standard. It makes 420 horsepower, 468 pound-feet of torque. Both of those are more than the outgoing engine that made, I don't know, 395 horsepower, 410 pound-feet of torque. Obviously, it's delivered much differently as well, this being a 6-cylinder and using forced induction through those turbochargers as opposed to that naturally aspirated V8. So what should you expect when you get your foot into it? Well, no, it doesn't sound like a V8, but it feels just as ample. I'm telling you right now, whether you're familiar with these half-ton trucks or someone else is, I think there are a lot of people out there that could be tricked into thinking this still has an 8-cylinder. No, it doesn't have that kind of audible sensation that you get with V8 power, but everything else is on point. And what are you gonna expect here? Ram's not gonna make this thing sound or feel cheap and chintzy. This is still the brand or the automaker that brought you the Brotherhood of Muscle, which is hilarious. Just ask Jody Lai.
Let me tell you about this Brotherhood of Muscle we got.
But considering that fact, this straight six is more than enough, and of course it relies on those turbochargers, and according to the engineering team, the whole point of using 2 smaller turbos versus 1 big one, cut out the turbo lag, make it operate more efficiently and more reliably, so each turbo, all it has to do is take care of 3 cylinders, and that is excellent. Now, if you do want to spring for that high output version, you are going to get, well, more output, 540 horsepower, 521 pound-feet of torque. Do you need it? Absolutely not. I'm telling you, this thing boogies. It does not feel like a big, bulky truck, and that's sort of characteristic of the entire Ram 1500 lineup, and it has been for a while. I've been saying since this one was introduced, I don't know, a handful of years ago, that it drives a lot more like a family-friendly SUV, and that's very much the case here, even in this kind of rough and rugged Rebel version that I'm driving. I love it. Now, if you're looking for something trucky, well, of course, it's not gonna feel exactly like that, but I think this is more palatable to more people, but then again, it still packs that punch. And this Rebel can do impressive stuff out on the trail. We were at this ranch, we were cruising around on a pretty rugged course. They set up something that really showed off what this thing can do. Pretty awesome. Out on the road, just as awesome if you ask me. Something else that I really like here, Ram has stepped up the game with the Tradesman, the cheapest version of this truck. Before, it felt pretty stripped down. You know, it was kind of that contractor special. Not so much anymore. It's got all kinds of good features, including a very well-rounded advanced safety and driver assistance suite. And on that note, finally, you can get full hands-free highway driving with the Ram 1500. No, not in the Tradesman, but from, I don't remember what it is, the limited trim and up or something, who knows? It's hard to remember all the different trim names of this truck, but a bunch of them now either have it standard or optional, so it's keeping up with the Ford F-150 as well as the Chevrolet Silverado, the GMC Sierra. Also, massaging seats, something I complained about before. Well, they are here, and I'm happy to report that they work wonders. No, not in this Rebel, just the top two trims, but that again is one of those features that's been missing from this truck for a while now, and I'm very happy to see it because let's be honest, you're gonna have FOMO. The reality is, if you were buying this truck and you know that your buddy has an F-150 with massaging seats and you paid about the same amount of money, well, how would you feel? Probably pretty upset. Now, let's get to that money. Now, a couple points before we get to the dollars and cents. Don't forget, there are always incentives available, but they fluctuate so much depending on where you live, what time of month it is, all of that stuff. I am not going to get into what it may be listed for at all the dealers across Canada because I don't have time for that, and it would change all the time. The other thing to remember, there are a ton of different trims here. These half-ton trucks are very popular, and they cover the whole gamut from those contractor grades to these full luxurious ones like this new tungsten trim or whatever Rams decided to call the top trim this time around. But pricing, 62 grand with freight before tax, and then it maxes out at somewhere around 98,000. And this Rebel I'm driving, 79 grand. Yes, again, I am going to reiterate, I know a bunch of you are thinking, hey, I paid way less than that for my truck. Don't forget, this is a Canadian review, and I don't know how much you paid. All I can talk about is MSRP, but I think it is a pretty good deal. Again, if you are getting those incentives on top of that price tag, well, you're looking at a pretty sweet bargain with a pretty sweet engine. Like I said, it works really well. This transmission, it's the same one as before. It's an 8-speed automatic. I think it's great. It works really well with this straight six. Only one hiccup earlier today where we were slowing down in a construction zone and it kind of got caught between gears, but I really blame the construction zone and not so much the truck, and it quickly figured itself out. Like I said, smooth, comfortable, quiet, all kinds of features. You can get a 14.5-inch touchscreen in here now, all kinds of screen real estate. This thing has it going on. I am really happy. Yeah, it might not look like a massive change, but this thing is fundamentally better than before.